about living here in the village? What do you love to do most?
Well, there were two things that I really like to do. One I've talked about a lot is play tennis. But the other thing I do is I write. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to do much of that since I'm on the board. But my wife and I, we're engaged in a lot of different activities here, which we like. So we go to the film club, say, and go to the rock and rollers. We like dancing. Uh, we usher at a couple of places. Laguna Woods Playhouse, we're going to usher there tonight. And we usher at Soca, which is a really interesting experience. And we have a lot of friends that we have made here over the years, so we like to get together with them. So I can't say that I have a day that's a lack of activity.
What made you decide to be on a board?
Well, as I've said, when I first moved here, I really had very little interest in being on a board. I've been on boards before, but these were mainly philanthropic. And when I came here, I just wanted to do my thing. But things started to get progressively what I felt was worse. And I became more concerned. I had friends who were more politically involved, and they got me interested. And the more interested I got, the more I felt, well, it's time for me to step up. I've been taking it's time to give back to the community, and that's always been a driver for me throughout my life, really. And I think I've gotten that actually from my folks. My mother was a volunteer, I remember, in a nursing home. She said she'd like to go and feed the old people. She was 75 and doing that. So I think that's important. And this was one way to do it. I wanted to help people. And since I've been on the board, that's a focus that I've had to try and help people here in the community. I think that's really important.
What's the most interesting thing you've learned once you got on the board as far as the community?
Well, I think the most interesting thing, but just something I've always realized but really is reinforced, is that people are not black and white, they're gray. So they all have some good features and maybe some features you're not too crazy about, but the point is to get along and to try to accomplish things. And in terms of the residents, the most surprising thing is no matter what the issue is, there are going to be people who are fervent on either side. Okay, we're thinking about changing the hours of construction here that the contractors have in the community. Not drastically, but slightly. We had a woman came before the board, and she had this little dog, and she says, I can't leave my dog home anymore because they're doing all this construction next to me. This is a private contractor. He's going day and night. He starts banging early in the morning. He says, my dog is having a nervous breakdown, and it seems to be going on forever. So we thought this woman had a good case, and we started to consider that. And we talked about lessening those hours, and then I started to get these letters from people saying, this is really unfair to the contractors. How do you expect them to make a living? This is important to them, and they need to have the longer hours. We're going to scare away all the contractors. Well, they each had a very good point, and something I think most of the board members didn't really even consider or were thinking about. So that's a relatively small issue, but I can tell you practically every issue that we've tried to solve or to face, we've come up against that. And that's just a fact of life. If you're on the board, you have to realize you're not going to be able to please everybody. What you have to do is make what you think is the best and fairest decision and keep in mind both short range and long range needs.
Is there any disturbing things that have happened that people need to understand that we don't really realize until you're sitting in that seat as a board member?
Well, I think that there are a lot of people who are one issue, and that's part of the community. These are elderly people. They've come here to retire. They want to take things easy. They want to have a good time. And as long as you don't disturb their pattern, everything is just fine. But if there's one thing that impinges upon them, they become really enraged and they start storming the boards and writing us letters. Well, they have to, again, have a broader outlook, which is what we're trying to do. And that doesn't always work. We realize that.
You can't please everybody.
You can't please everybody. But what I think is important is to speak to them, to listen to what they have to say, maybe modify your position, but also try to explain what you want to do and why you're doing it. And I don't think the board does as good a job on that aspect as they can. And that's why I'm really happy to have an opportunity to talk to you, to talk to people, to try and explain what we're trying to do. We're not really bad guys. And there may be a few, but I don't think at this point they have much influence. So we want to move ahead.
Yeah, because we're in this transition phase. We own everything now. There's no management company.
Right. So we can't blame them. But I can tell you, we've immediately had complaints about the management.
Really?
Oh, yes. It almost starts with day one. In fact, I mentioned to Brad Hudson when he first got here, I said, "You're in your honeymoon period now, take advantage of it." And he agreed with me. He realizes that too. So we're getting complaints about what management is doing. A lot of it, unfortunately, is based on rumors. And these rumors invariably are wrong. They're highly exaggerated. And so we need to help dispel some of the rumors. But a lot of the information we have is still confidential.
Right, that's tough. You can't speak your mind.
That's right. So, when it involves employees or employee relationships and changes, we may know things that the public doesn't know, but we really can't divulge it.
So they talk a lot about transparency, but when it comes to employees and things, there's laws in place that
That's
keep
right.
you from speaking out.
That's right. You're really limited in that aspect. And there are contractual matters too. We're limited as to what we can say, particularly when we're negotiating. So, and then these rumors build up because there's this void, and some of that is you can't do anything about it.
What makes us different here than, say, Aliso Viejo is if you buy an Aliso Viejo, you own your house, you've got a deed, and the city does what the city does. But as a owner here, everybody feels that we're part of the corporation. I have a stock from United, right? So I feel like I own a teeny slice of the community.
Right.
So you don't have that ownership if you're living in most cities.
That's true.
California. That's
true, and that's a big difference. And also, people don't understand the difference between a condo and a co-op, which seems to be quite basic. But I know when I start talking to people, I ask them, "Are you in United? Are you in Third?" I get this blank look, and it's not necessarily related to how intelligent they are. And I say, "Do you own a condo or do you own a co-op?" Another blank look, and they don't know what the difference is between a condo and a co-op. But in many cases, there is a big difference.
So it seems to me that the issue is really informing the citizens here about the complexities of what it's like to run this place and live here, because it's complicated.
That's right. It is complicated. We have the GRF, and people don't understand what GRF is, Well, before we had our own management company, there were these mystical boards or forces or organizations that were controlling people's lives. One was GRF, and the other was PCM, and they just didn't understand what these forces were, what they were doing. All they knew is that they were impinging on their lives and causing them all kinds of grief. Well, it goes beyond that. They have to understand that the way we're governed each of the mutuals has a board. So there's one for United, there's one for Third. I'm on the Third board. A GRF, which is really in charge of all our recreational facilities, all our services, everything essentially outside of the mutual housings. And we still have the towers. They're still part of the community, and they pay assessments, which people don't understand, even though they're not governed by this new management corporation, or they don't use them as their management tool. And now we put in another board, there's the VMS board. So you have, and they really have no direct relationship to the residents. The members of that board are the members of the boards of the mutuals. So the directors are members, but not the residents, and they really have no direct obligation to the residents. Of course they do, but you can't go to their meetings. They are not governed by Davis Sterling. They are like a private corporation, and people don't understand that, and they may be troubled by it. So we have 11 members on Third, 11 members on United, 11 directors, they're directors on GRF. We have 5, that's 33. We have 5 on the Towers board, that's 38. And now we have this other board, the VMS board, that's another 9 people. So you have 47 people floating around who somehow are controlling your destiny. And when people move in here, we give them a brochure, or we give them a series of documents trying to indicate how this place is structured, and most of them take a look at it, they glance at it, and they just put it aside. It's so complex, they don't want to know about it. And I think that's probably always going to be an issue.
Well, they've got a couple of videos out there, United and Third, new resident orientation,
Right.
that seems to be going into a little bit more of the detail of that.
Yes, and I think actually they're working on a new one. And there are these new resident orientations. The Third, United has it once a month. People should go to that. Not everyone goes. And one of the things we're finding is a lot of the new residents work, which is, I think, I don't have any statistics. My feeling is an increasing number of them are working. So this meeting is held on a Friday morning at 9. They're working. They can't go to the meeting. The other thing you can do, and this is open to every resident, is you can take a tour here. Take a bus tour. There are 2 that leave every Thursday. Get on the bus. Look at the community. See how complex, how big it really is. And this is a big place. We have 18,000 people living here, so we're really a town in itself.
Yeah, it's kind of fun to drive around in a golf cart. I don't know if you've ever done that, but you get a whole different perspective because you're going slower. You can look around more,
Right.
And there's a lot to see.
Yes, absolutely. A lot that I don't know.
Even you don't know.
That's right, absolutely. And that's one of the things I think everyone has to realize when they get on the board. Important, and it's a guiding light to me, is, hey, I don't know everything. I don't know. I'm still learning about this community, and that's one of the nice things about being on a board. You have a chance to learn more about the community, how it works, and what I really like is I meet a lot of new people like you, and that's really great. And the real richness of this community is its diversity. You know, some people are taken aback, but I think this is really great. Look at all the different groups that we have here, all the different ethnic groups and cultures, and how they can contribute to this community, not detract from it. And if you speak to people and you find out about what they did, as I call real life, that's really fascinating. You'll see people with broad experience, people from all over the world, people who've done such interesting, unique things, and they're your neighbors. You're living with them, and we ought to relish that and take advantage of that. In fact, I'm on the Community Activities Committee, and one of the things we're talking about is having an international day where we celebrate the fact that we have so many different communities here.
Now, as far as skill sets, being a board member, you've been here long enough, and someone's thinking about being on a board. Is there like a threshold of skills you think people need to have in order to be effective as a board member?
Well, when I was thinking of running, a board member sent me an email. I don't know, this is a woman, she no longer lives in the community, and she said, really the only qualification, and I think she may have even been quoting the Davis-Sterling Act, was you need to have good judgment. And I would say, yeah, that's the basic, that you need to have some good judgment. And you can amplify that. But what usually happens is you get people with different talents, and I think that's good. So, there's always a stress on engineers. I think engineers are really important. Some of my best friends are engineers. I'm not an engineer, I'm a chemist. So I may look at the world a little differently, of course. I like to think that chemists are more creative, and I'm sure every engineer disagrees, okay? But if you have a financial background, that's good. If you have some legal knowledge, that's good. If you've worked in business, that's good, and most of us have, many of us have. And even if you come from non-business related, if you worked in education, well, that can help you too. Okay, so what I would say, and I've talked about this before, is yes, it's nice to have experience, but I think you also need some other qualities. And I mentioned good judgment. I think you need to have a sense of creativity, a curiosity, a willingness to try new things, a willingness to learn. There's a lot of learning still going on, and we're not too old to still learn. An ability to listen to people, an ability to talk to people, and try to explain what you're doing. So I think there's a myriad of characteristics that would help you. And I think what's important for a board is that we have diversity. Not everyone thinks the same way. I don't think that boards where everything is rubber stamped is necessarily the best way to go.
I've seen videos from years past living here where some board members are yelling at people and they're angry. Right. And that seems super counterproductive to me, to be yelling at people.
I agree with you.
That would be one of the negative qualities that we really aren't looking for.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's two ways, because there are residents that have that too. You know, when they come before the board, they usually have an issue, and it's a burning issue. And that's what's caused them to do this, because it takes a lot of nerve for people to come up and face the board.
It does.
So it's a burning issue. They're not listening very well. They're really in a talking mode, and you have to understand that. I have to tell you, when I think it was the first board meeting that I was at, this woman who I know of got up and had this laundry list of complaints about landscaping. And this was at the time we had just had the recall vote. And I think I mentioned something offhand about landscaping, which may have upset her. I didn't mean to upset her. And she got up and she said, I think some of these board members should be recalled. And then she pointed at me, and you should be the first one. Well, I'm still there, but she was angry, and I could see why she reacted that way. And maybe I should have thought before I made any remark to this woman. So it works both ways.
Let's talk about the big picture, because in my mind, the frustration leaves if you've got a long-term goal that people can buy into. In my mind, that takes away a lot of the confrontation, because even though you might disagree on a lot of things, there's a lot of long-term goals that people will all agree on.
Well, that's interesting. You use the term long-term, okay? One no now is long range. Okay, and I think that's because if you've lived here a while, you know at one point there was this long range plan for the community that the GRF board had, and this became a real nasty word, okay? And it actually resulted in a recall of some of the members of that board. And from that point on, everyone has been very reluctant to use the term long range. The other factor that you have that we're well aware of is you have people who are in the twilight. Okay, they're not thinking about long range necessarily. They're not buying what I call, they have the green bananas syndrome. They don't buy green bananas, okay? They want everything now. They're not worried about tomorrow. They don't want to plan for someone else, really, because if you start thinking long range, it may not involve you directly, but it would involve the community. But I think a real director has to have some long range ideas about how to improve this community, how to keep it growing.
If our budget's 100 million and we keep it 100 million for 10 years, that's $1 billion over the next 10 years to operate this community. That seems like a lot of money to
Right. 100 million is a lot of money, right?
And we should be thinking about what can we get for 100 million or $1 billion to, keep the quality up or increase quality in my mind. That's my own.
Yeah, well, for one thing, 100 million, you have to understand, that's the budget for running this whole place. And about 60% of that is salaries. So right off the bat, you're paying about $60 million for all employees here. We have about 1,000 roughly. And I'm not saying that that's not money well spent, but people have to realize that in any budget, that's your biggest factor. And people are always saying, oh, there's always this waste. Well, we're striving to reduce the waste and to make things more efficient, and that's what Brad Hudson, who's the new CEO, that's one of his babies. He's trying, and he is instituting all kinds of new computer systems and methods so that the workflow would be much more efficient and the residents would benefit, and so would we. But as the board, we have some long-term, your term, goals. I think one of them is in energy, and a lot of that is due to Burt Baum, who is a board member. And I can say that we have just signed a preliminary contract with a major solar company. We've been working on this for, ever since I've been on the board. We're going to put solar panels on some of the 3-story buildings, and this will generate electricity to take care of the common areas in Third Mutual. Okay, this is just for Third Mutual. That bill, and this is not the residential bill, this is a community bill for Third Mutual. That bill is $600,000. We think this would reduce it by 80%, and not only that, it would keep it at a steady rate for that same rate for 20 years. All right, and we know that these rates are going to go up, and we think this is a real breakthrough. And not only that, and this is a lot due to our treasurer, Wei Ming Tao, who is retiring. She has worked out a plan where we don't have to borrow any money to do this, and that was one of the real stumbling blocks. This is something that will benefit us for 20 years. We're doing other things in energy that will also benefit us, and so is United. In fact, United is also looking at putting in solar on their carports, on the roofs to generate. So this will have a real benefit for this community, a benefit long range. So these will have a lot of benefits to the community, and we think we're going to try and bring the community into the 21st century. But there are people here who they like the 19th century. They said, we just came here to retire. We just want to enjoy life. But then you ask them, well, what kinds of things are enjoyable to you? And you'll find out maybe they play golf. Okay, this is supported by this community, and we spend a lot of money on golf. All right, maybe they like bocce, or maybe they like horseback riding. Well, this is a really unique community in that we have all these different facilities, and this attracts people. They come here for that reason. And under our shared cost system, which people don't understand either, you can do a lot of these at minimal or no cost. Okay, I play tennis. I don't have to pay for the tennis court, and of course, there's no fee structure. It's supported by the community. But you know how much it costs you? 8 cents a month. That's pretty cheap. So we ought to realize this, take advantage of it, enjoy it. If I don't play golf, but I'm really happy to have this golf course here, or these courses. I like to see the guys practicing out back there. That's fine. That's good. I don't ride horses, but I'm really happy that we have that facility here. So let's realize that and let's enjoy it. If we say, I don't want this, I don't need this, let them pay, that will turn out to be much more expensive for all of us. It will force us to limit the kinds of recreation and activity that we have in this community, and it will attract fewer people, particularly younger people. So we need, and that's longer range. So yeah, and that reflects in your property values, which a lot of people don't think about until they feel a direct threat. And if you just sit down and do the math, your increases in property values mean very much more to you than any possible increase in assessments in terms of dollars and cents. We understand the problems in the community. We know that there are people living here on fixed incomes. We know that prices are rising all over and they may feel strapped. And I think in certain cases, the boards ought to come together and try to do something about that particular problem. Excuse me, but I'm not sure just how extensive it is.
For the average villager, what do you want them to know as far as how they should be feeling about where we're at now that we're 6 months into this transition?
Well, I think you have to understand a little about the transition, okay? It came on a little faster than the people on the third board wanted. Feeling as we were against PCM. That's not the full story. We did not have a lot of time to plan. I think we did choose a very capable CEO of this, what we now call our own management company. I think he has a lot of good ideas. I think some of them are new and people are a little annoyed with them, or they may not fully understand them. But I think all in all, we're headed in the right path. And we're all agreed there are going to be mistakes, but we're willing to correct them. There's been a lot of animosity in the community. And I think what we have to do is learn to enjoy life and to enjoy one another. And I got this t-shirt, about a year or so ago when I volunteered at the San Joaquin School, which I still do. Every kid walked around with this and said, be a buddy, not a bully. That would be a very good motto for us.
I think that's a great way to end our interview. I had a lot of fun, and I appreciate you sitting down with me today because
thank you.
It was very fruitful.